Welcome back to the channel, fellow aviators. I am excited to be back with you. As always, before we get started, if you find some value in this content or enjoy it, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. It really does help out the channel. Speaking of which, I'm actually coming up on the 1-year anniversary, and as I'm approaching 3,500 subscribers, it is wild thinking literally a year ago, it was myself and Mrs. A320 watching the channel. So it really has helped out. I enjoy making the content for y'all. So what's coming up for the channel? The biggie probably is I've been working on doing some live streaming, getting that all set up. It would be nice to fly just a lot of various aircraft for y'all. You know, here in the NeoFly series, which really continues to be one of my higher watch series. If I look at all my stats, like in the 48 previous hours, this series always ranks number 1, number 2, number 3, something like that. Depends on what content I'm putting out. So I enjoy making this. We spend a lot of time teaching and going over things, but I would like the ability to start bringing in just various other aircraft as they come through. We can do some deep dives, have some conversations. So live streaming should be coming up next. The only thing that's kind of hindering it is, well, life. I am heading away to training, actually my check ride on Tuesday. I'm going to be gone almost all week, so I'm not sure if there's going to be content next week or not. I get back Saturday. Hopefully everything goes well. We have check rides twice a year. We have one that's called Proficiency Training, and one's called Proficiency Check, or the PC. The PT is a little bit more relaxed, though depending on what check airman you fly with, they will tell you repeatedly that you can actually fail this. I'm going for the PC, Proficiency Check, and it involves some ground school. We will spend the day we'll spend the day before going over what's called a loft line orientation flight training. We'll fly from Vegas to LA or LA up to San Francisco. They will induce kind of minor emergency stuff that you might see commonly on the line, right? So we're not going to spend a lot of time doing engine failures. That'll actually be during the check ride on the next day. We'll also do URPT, which is upset recovery training. So we will put the aircraft, or the check airman will put the aircraft in the sim, of course, in a lot of really weird and unique situations that you might find yourself in. We work on like energy management. Trying to recover a stall at a high altitude is a much more difficult proposition than down at a lower altitude. It's not more difficult in terms of technique. It's just more difficult in terms of altitude loss, right? There's just not enough lift up there and or chemical energy, which is your fuel, your engines, to be able to provide sufficient thrust. So, and we'll do a lot of unusual attitudes. You know, we'll have to stick our head down. The examiner will put the aircraft in a unique position. You pop your head up, got to immediately interpret what the gauges are telling you, immediately provide the corrective actions, right? A lot of times it's unloading the wing, so we kind of low G it, depending on kind of what we're doing. And then the next day is actually the check ride. And the check ride itself is pretty standard. There's not a lot of big surprises. There's just not a lot of room for mistakes. So it's one of those things that's a lot of pressure as you're going through it. You can literally enter the day as an airline captain and 4 hours later be qualified to work at Walmart as a door greeter. So a little bit of pressure. So anyway, so I'm going to be doing that for the most of the week, and I've had some other obligations. So I haven't quite started on the live streaming, but yeah, please be on the lookout for it. I'd be really excited to have everyone join me when I start doing it. All right, so now that we're dealing with just NeoFly, what's going on? Well, if you remember from the last episode, just before I took off, they told me I wasn't getting paid for the flight. And I promptly ignored that and made the flight, and turns out, in fact, I did not get paid. And the reason is, as we see over here, I've already kind of pre-selected the flight I plan on doing, which is Bozeman. I never came down. I may have line selected, but I never came down here and actually accepted the flight and put it into the system. You can tell if we come up to our hangar up here, now we have a destination. I never did that. So, which is why I got to do that flight for free. The other thing that we need to be kind of concerned now as we come down here and take a look at our finances is we have that $500,000 loan. So if we look over on the left-hand side on the column over there, we can find our very first payment, which was about $50,000 per week. Our next one's coming up here in a couple days of $45,000. But I actually have just enough money, $459, to pay this off. I have just sent out my AI pilot. He has a full tank of gas and he's doing a flight right now. I've already loaded up my plane with gas, so I shouldn't have any other expenditures. And at 50 grand a week, I think the highest priority here is we should probably pay that off. So let's go ahead and repay this loan. So now we don't have any expenses other than I think our dispatcher, and he's like $200 a week. So we effectively have eliminated all of our expenses, which is great. As I go away for training, I don't have to worry about logging in at all. All right, so the plan is we're going to do that real quick flight from here in Twin Falls, Idaho. We're going to head over to Bozeman. Things that we may or may not see today, and it really just depends on the weather, might have to wait till next week, depending on what's going on, is some cold weather operations as we get into wintertime, and the Black Square aircraft and the A2A aircraft all simulate cold weather operations, with the biggest thing being cold soaking of the engine and our oil. When I had my plane, which I had a Mooney M20J, I used to fly to work all the time, and I would have to leave around 6 in the morning. And so in the New Jersey here, it gets really cold. Well, maybe not as cold as up here in the Midwest, but we are in down to the single digits or low 20s most of the day. And you can really do a lot of damage to your engine trying to start. It's the same thing with your car, that most of the damage comes during the starting sequence. If you have really oil that's really thick and does not preheat up well, then you have metal on metal contact, which usually generates most of the damage to the aircraft or your car engine. So what I did is I actually had an electric heater built into the engine block, and then I had a timer, and then every morning at 5 a.m., the timer would start. It would heat up the engine oil, and it would start up perfectly. Well, that's going to be simulated here in the Black Square aircraft as well. I'm just not sure what the temperature is when we get out there, but we will start seeing that probably here in the next episode or two. So without further ado, let me hop out to the airport. We're also going to use say intentions as we try to increase the realism, and we will just take a quick flight over to Bozeman. My airline flies in there. I've actually never gone in there. We used to go in there with our smaller 319s kind of on a seasonal service, but I'm obviously more East Coast based, so I never really got a chance to go over there. So we will check that out, and I will just meet you out with the aircraft up and running as we kind of pick up our ATIS, pick up our clearance, and then get going. All right? So once again, everyone, thanks for the support. Again, coming up on the year anniversary. So I appreciate you all very much, and I will meet you out at the aircraft here in just a few seconds. All right, buddy, I am back with you. The aircraft's all up and ready to go. Let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, Twin Falls, Baron 058 Delta Delta, ready to copy clearance to Bozeman.
I'm working on that clearance. Stand by. Baron 8 Delta Delta, cleared to Bozeman via the Snako 3 departure, then as filed. Climb and maintain 7,000. Expect 8,010 minutes after departure. Departure on 126.7, squawk 1511. Expect runway 26.
8 Delta Delta, cleared to Bozeman via the Snako 3 departure as filed. Claim maintain 7,000, expect 8,000. Squawking 1511 and departure frequency 126.7.
Baron 8 Delta Delta, read back correct. Ground will be on 121.7.
21.7 for 8 Delta Delta. Boy, could that guy have said that any quicker. All right, so I feel like I'm back in New York. All right, so let's go ahead and get our squawk frequency. So 1511 Alt. We'll get that Alt. Then we'll go ahead and come over here. Let's put in our altitude of 7,000. And we'll be doing the Snako 3 departure. So we haven't really done SIDs yet, so let's just take a real quick second and look at that SID chart. All right, everybody. I pulled up the chart to make it a little bit easier to see here on my desktop, and we haven't really dealt with SIDs or standard instrument departures. It's just a way to get the aircraft from the airport up into the airways. And as such, we really don't use them a lot in general aviation. This would probably be kind of the first aircraft you could do that with as you're getting up into the flight levels. A lot of times when you look at a SID, you're going to see maintain 250 knots. That's something we're not going to be able to do. But I thought this might be a really good opportunity just to cover it real briefly. If you've seen how to read an approach chart, I have a tutorial out on that. It's the same basic format. At the very top at the header, we're going to see our departure frequency 126.7. We were told that during our initial clearance. We see our transition altitudes, DME required, that's the required equipment. Coming down, that's the kind of departure it is. It's going to be the Snako 3 departure. Just below that, that is our plan view. You can see we're going to be taking off, heading direct out towards Snako, and then we're going to be on a 10-mile DME arc, and that's why that DME is going to be required. You can see we go from Snako to Yearer, Salmon, Jax, boy, I'm not even pronouncing this, Fairwood, Mirth. We're doing the Mirth transition, and so you can see that's why we need a DME arc. Obviously, we have a GPS, so we should be able to follow that. And just below that is what I thought is kind of interesting. We'll see that this SID requires takeoff minimums. You're going to see that all the time. And they may be different. That's the kind of the visibility is what's going to be required to take off. We have really good visibility, just kind of some low clouds. We don't have to worry about that specifically. But below that, you're going to see ground speed. And then these are all the requirements. So if we look down at the Mirth transition, it says requires minimum climb of 295 feet per nautical mile up to 15,000 feet. And conveniently, they have given us a chart. So if we look down there at the very bottom, we need 295. So at 75 knots, we'll need 369 feet per minute on our VSI. 100 knots, 492, 150, 738. So we're probably going to be holding right around 150 knots or so. On either side, if we approach 200, which we won't, we would need up to 983 feet per minute. And so that, you're not going to see that on all charts, but if you look down, you can see, or up at that plan view again, you can see right over RoadJet, we have some mountainous terrain, if you remember, coming in here. And so that helps us avoid that terrain. And then just below that, you can see for runway 26, it's going to say climb heading 258 to intercept the Twin Falls radial 255 to Snako. So basically it's going to be almost straight out. And we'll let our GPS take care of that. And then from Snako on transition, expect filed altitude 10 minutes after departure. And we heard that in the clearance. And so these are fairly simple once you understand how to read them. And I just thought I'd introduce it. We don't have a speed restriction. And if we were truly flying in some real IFR weather, we would not want to just kind of randomly take off. We want a little bit of guidance. Now, mostly air traffic control is going to do that for us. So anyways, I thought this might be just a real quick opportunity to start looking at some SIDs. And as we fly faster aircraft that are capable to go up into higher altitudes and higher airspeeds, then SIDs are going to be kind of the standard way we depart. So we may or may not see those as we move forward. So just a real quick introduction on how to read a SID approach plate, okay? Or SID plate, not approach. All right, words are hard. All right, well, let's go back out to the aircraft. All right, everybody, I just picked up my clearance, but forgot to hit the record button. So we're just gonna taxi out to runway 26 here. So it was an Alpha 1. And I love taxiway. Lights are right in the middle of the taxiway. Anyways, we'll just taxi out here and hopefully we can grab our tower frequency.
Baron 8 Delta Delta, contact tower on 118.2.
118.2 for Baron 8 Delta Delta. Okay, we're holding short run right here at runway 26. Let's go ahead and put on my parking brake. And I'll do the run up off camera since we just did that last week, and I will meet you when we're ready to get going. All right, everybody, I am back with you. So we've done the run up, and just before we get going, let's just do a real quick review. We've got 7,000 set. We'll come down to our HSI. We've got our runway heading approximately. We've got our course deviation needle in the direction roughly it should be going. We have our departure frequency 126.7 set for our next frequency, and I think at this point we are ready to go. So let's give them a call. Tower, Baron 058 Delta Delta, ready for departure.
Baron 058 Delta Delta, Twin Falls Tower, runway 26, winds 180 at 10, RNAV Snako, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 26, RNAV Snako. All right, so the RNAV portion tells me we can just follow the GPS. All right, so let's drop our parking brake and let's get out of here. One thing that you need to probably be a little bit aware of if you're using SimBrief to make your flight plans is it doesn't do a really or any job of making sure you're going to be clear of all your obstacles. So that's something you're going to need to consider, and I think even something we may have to consider because we've been told to expect 8,000 as our final altitude, and there are a couple smaller mountain ranges and we are flying into clouds, so just something to consider. We may have to ask for higher, and when you make your flight plan up, you may want to make sure that you put in higher. All right, hard on the brakes there. Let's go ahead and bring our throttle up.
Twin Falls Tower, commencing 8351 Papa, holding short, runway 30, ready to go.
All right, looking
Command
for
to
about
November 8351 Papa, Twin Falls Tower, wind
80
290
knots.
at 15, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff.
All right, 80 knots.
Comanche 51
Use
Papa.
a little back pressure.
Comanche 51 Papa, contact departure on
Positive rate.
126.7.
Nice takeoff, pilot.
Gear
Have
up.
a safe, steady flight.
Change, put in my pitch trim there, right about there, and as we continue to accelerate, bring our flaps up, and from here we can go down to put our autopilot on. There we go. Let's put in nav. And we are 5,000.
Delta Delta, contact departure on 126.7.
26.7, 8 Delta Delta.
All right, clear to Battle Mountain. Radar vectors, Sam.
Good morning. Baron 058 Delta Delta, checking in with you 5,500 for 7,000.
Baron 058 Delta Delta, Twin Falls departure, radar contact. Climb and maintain 7,000, turn left, heading 185, vectors to Aurora, then is filed.
Climb maintain 7,000, say again, front 08 Delta Delta. I totally missed that. All right, 6.5 for 7.
Delta, climb and maintain 9,000.
08 Delta Delta, climb maintain 9,000. Pop that back in, and we want 9,000. And 8 Delta Delta, say, heading. Heading 260, 8 Delta Delta. All right. And away we go. All right, so let me just move out this in and zoom in. All right, so that was a great example just a couple seconds ago of a little bit of task saturation, right? I'm trying to get in my altitude, my vertical speed to get in there. They're talking to me. All right, 8,000 climbing 9. So that does happen. Checking our VSI, we got about 1,500 feet per minute rate of climb. I like it, holding between, or right around 120 or so, 115. This can kind of be our VY speed here.
Wind false approach, November 602, Charlie Zulu, 8,500. November 602, Charlie Zulu, thank you.
Piper 2 Charlie Zulu, say again.
Piper 2 Charlie Zulu, contact Salt Lake Center on 118.05.
So that kind of stuff does happen, happens in the real world. That's why we, in the airlines, have a 2-person crew with one guy's entire job just working radios. All right, so I'm going to leave my cowl flaps open for a little bit here. I'm not sure where we're going to end up at. We can check, come down here, we'll just kind of check everything. Manifold pressure, RPM. We can start pulling our RPM back here a little bit. We're right back to about 2,500 or so. See that little spinning cross up there, our syncophaser? I think that's what it's called. We can come down here and put on our prop sync, which will help out. Pulling a little bit out of the there we go. That's kind of synced up there. Manifold pressure, we can just leave it right where it's at. That's the great thing about this turbocharger. Check out where we're going. You see I have the pitot heat on, so the general rule is below around 10 degrees Celsius and invisible moisture, which a cloud's going to have. You're going to want to have your pitot heat on. And now we're starting that DME arc as we were discussing earlier. Just zoom out here a little bit, and we are now underway. All right, so what I can do is now come down here. We'll just go ahead and we will close our cowl flaps. And that helps with temperature regulation inside the engine. All right, so in order to make this not too long a video, since we spent a little bit of time talking about the SIDS, I will cut you guys out here, and I will probably just bring you back a little bit closer. I don't think we have a star.
52, turn right, heading 065.
H352, request indirect to Fessor.
We don't have a star to worry about, so I'll just probably bring you in as we get a little bit closer to the airport here, and I may at some point ask to go higher. Matter of fact, let's see how air traffic control, the AI, responds. And departure 8 Delta Delta would like to climb and maintain 15,000. Let's see how it deals with that request, if at all. So interesting, it did not recognize that request. We tried again. Departure 8 Delta Delta with request.
Baron 8 Delta Delta, say request.
Baron 8 Delta Delta would like to climb and maintain 15,000.
121.15, Beach 75 Delta, good day.
Baron 8 Delta Delta would like to climb to 15,000. All right, so it understood that I wanted to request. It now just does.
Delta Delta, climb and maintain 15,000.
There we go. Climb and maintain 15,000. Baron 8 Delta Delta. Excellent. So that's one of the issues what we have to deal with in terms of 15,000. Right here, 1,000 feet per minute looks good. And oops, engage. And now we get a nice 1,000 feet per minute rate to climb, and we will climb up to 15,000, which should give us a little bit more clearance.
Citation 0, Mike Papa.
All right,
Climb and
coming into the
maintain flight
clouds
level
here.
290.
Let's look. We're right at
290, 0 Mike Papa.
7-8 degrees.
Citation 0,
See if
Mike
we ice
Papa.
up.
Contact Salt Lake Center on 118.05.
We shall see. All right, so we've got our clearance. We're going up to 15,000. That gives us a little bit more clearance since we can't really see what's going on in front of us. And I will catch you in just a few seconds as we get a little bit closer. All right?
Delta 1243, Salt Lake Center, roger.
All right, everybody. I wanted to check back in with you real quick. When I was taking off, I had mentioned that we had only been cleared, was it 7, 8, 9,000 at one point? And I was a little bit concerned. Obviously, we're flying in the clouds. I can't see. And if we kind of look out the window right here, we can see if we would have held 9,000, we would have been right in that terrain. So how can we figure out what altitude we need to be at? Well, it's actually fairly simple if you have some Navigraph charts. So let's pull up our EFB, and you can see we are actually, one of the reasons we want to get up higher is better fuel economy. We will go faster, especially if we were going eastbound. That's the direction of the jet stream. So for the most part, obviously, it's going to change a little bit when you start having fronts and different weather patterns. But generally, going eastbound is going to be a little bit quicker than going westbound. And you can see if we look down, we're indicating like 186 knots. And if we look down at our moving map, we are actually smoking right now, doing about 240 knots ground speed. So we're really moving. And as we come up on this terrain here, so that's one reason, better fuel economy. Number two, generally faster. And number three, we don't want to run into controlled flight into terrain. And it gets very hard when you're dealing with weather, especially in an aircraft like this. Obviously, in the airliners, we're up at 30s, almost into flight level 400. But here, we're going to be kind of limited. I think we're max at about 25,000, which will get us over most of the ranges in America. But we're generally not going to generally cruise there, especially on maybe a shorter flight. It may be harder for us to get to that altitude. So how can we determine what altitude we need to be at? Well, if we bring up our EFB here, and I've synced my Navigraph charts up in here, we can start zooming in, and we can see now, as I center in, those red numbers off to the right here, 10.5,
3591,
11.3, 14.4, 11.5. Those stand for the altitude in that sector.
Delta
We
3591,
can safely
contact Salt
be
Lake
out
Approach on
and still avoid
124.3.
any obstacles by, I believe, 2,000 feet. So the sector we're in right now, we just passed it. We're at it's 9.9. So at 9,000 feet, we can't see. Really high chance that we are going to have a CFIT incident, right? So if you have the Navigraph charts, go ahead and just zoom in, and then you can kind of determine. So 14.4, we're going to be through that sector a little bit there. So 13.3. Now, that doesn't mean we will hit something at 13,000, or depends on if it's mountainous terrain or non-mountainous, 12,000, 11,000. But it gives us a pretty good indication of where we kind of need to be at. Obviously, when we're getting in closer into, let's see, Bagman, our big man coming up. That's our next waypoint coming up there. Those are generally going to be not in mountainous terrain, or we should have pretty good clearance going in there. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that up real quickly because I know I kind of mentioned it on takeoff and I kind of ended it there, because when you're making your sim brief flight plan, it doesn't necessarily give you the correct altitudes. So this is a way you can review the charts before you take off. Just put the low altitude and route chart as your chart that you want to see up there, and then you can kind of generally figure out what altitude you're going to need to cruise at. Anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that had we stayed at 9,000 feet, we almost certainly, this would have been a much shorter flight. And I'm playing it dangerous. I'm not insuring the aircraft because I ain't got that kind of skill, which is probably going to come bite me in the butt. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you real quick. We are absolutely flying right now. So I'll check back with you probably as we get a little closer, probably just past Big Man up there. And that's it. All right. See you in just a second. All right, everybody, checking back in with you. We are just starting our approach. It's going to be a little bit more complicated. I had asked for and planned for the ILS 12. They have now told me that's out of service, and now we are going to be doing the RNAV into Bozeman. So they've just given us a heading. We've gone down to 13,000. We're level off right here. If we look at our EFB, we're just kind of going towards the edge of Rattle, and then Lever would be our next fix. So the only issue, of course, is we don't have the ability to descend on the RNAV all the way down. So if you're, let's say, in the Airbus, what I would do at this point is I just put the bottom of the approach in, I'd arm it up, and it would actually hold all the altitude constraints for me. But we're going to have to do the old dive and drive technique. So it's just going to be a little bit more complicated for us to do. But other than that, I think we should be okay. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to kind of pull us in. You can see there, right on the left-hand side of the EFB, it said expect vectors for the RNAV approach. So I'm not sure. I've got, if you look down at the HSI down below, I've already got our final approach course heading of 318 set. It looks like it wants to go from Stams to Exuvo, or whatever that is. If we look over at our GPS, but I've got Lever pointed up there in case it's going to have us fly that full approach. I'm just not sure what we're going to expect here for the RNAV. So
We'll expect to have for runway 12 into Bozeman for Cessna 2 Jacko. We'd like to request the full procedure starting at Bridger. Approve full procedure starting at Bridger, Cessna 2 Jacko. Negative, we'd like to fly the full procedure from Bridger, Cessna 2 Jacko.
Cessna 30 Echo, approved for full procedure starting at Bridger.
all right, so we can see as we're kind of waiting to get for our next thing, we do a real quick brief up here. Final approach course at 318. I've got that set below.
Delta Delta, turn right heading 085.
Right turn 085, 8 Delta Delta. All right, so 085. Right about like that. Hazel will be our final approach fix there at 5,900. Airport elevations 4473. With our missed approach altitude being 51. Let's see, what is it telling us down here? 4880. All right, so it's going to be 400 feet above. So I'm not, like I said, looks like they're pushing us right into here. I'm just not sure how it's going to go from vector into the approach. It's going to be a little exciting and probably a lot of work. which is probably in the real world, they would not have you just kind of be vectored around like this. They would put you right at your initial approach fix, especially when you're dealing with mountainous terrain here. If I was in the Airbus right now, there would be a lot of briefing going on right about now. It's mountainous terrain. We've got to figure out
maintain 1000.
what happens if we lose our GPS signal, what's our escape
Sierra,
procedure,
climb and maintain 3000.
what is our
Departure November 7,
single
Tango
engine
Sierra,
procedure if we were to lose an engine right now.
11,000.
So the briefings become
74
fairly
Tango Sierra, descend and maintain 11,000.
detailed at this
huddle
point.
goodbye.
Something we'd probably start around 250 miles out. It's kind of like our standard when we start briefing that far out, and this definitely would be something we would want to brief. So the only thing I need to consider right now is lever. We should be at 9,900, so 10,000 feet. So we are a little bit high, I'm thinking, right about now. So at this point, I would probably, we'll get over lever here, and I'm going to probably want a descent here pretty soon if it doesn't give it to us. But once again, I'm not sure exactly how they're expecting us to get in here. I'm just a little bit bamboozled with their shenanigans, all the terms I'm going to use right now, and how they're going to want to get us into on this approach, because it's a GPS approach, yet I'm in heading mode. Does everyone see the issue that I'm having right now? We should not be in this configuration.
24 Delta Charlie.
So,
4 Delta Charlie, radar contact, 3 Forks, altimeter 2994.
in fact, I wonder if I just hit direct.
24 Delta Charlie.
4 Delta Charlie, contact Salt Lake Center on 132.4.
Let arm and head straight over, and then if I go to, I'm like a little bit, they're making me kind of nervous here. If I hit nav, let me see if I can proceed in towards and just kind of get myself on the approach. 'Cause once again, I'm a little bit high, so at this point I think I'm going to start not necessarily using beyond ATC here, or I'm sorry, say intentions. Zoom in. All right, and so we are going from lever down to turg, and so that is 8,000 feet. So let's go ahead and start that procedure.
Baron 8 Delta Delta, turn right, heading 090.
Right turn 090, 8 Delta Delta. I'm going to start ignoring them because I need to start getting down. Turg, we should be at 8,000, and we are 5,000 feet high. We are going to use 2,000 feet per minute, and we are going to engage. I'll pull back on my power a little bit so we don't start speeding up. So this is what we should be on an RNAV approach, not on these heading stuff. So I'm not sure exactly what the plan is, and we are a little bit late. So we see from Turg, which we're coming up here in a couple miles. We're almost starting to come over it right now. Extra is at 6,700, so we are just going to kind of keep on heading down at this point. I'm going to start pulling out even more power here, since I do not have any speed brakes for the ability to kind of slow down and get down at the same time. All right, so we are over Turg. We should be at 8,000. We are way, way, way high here. I think we should probably be able to catch up here.
Contact Bozeman Tower on 118.2.
We got 4.7 miles from Turg to Extra. Then
Citation
Extra.
11 Tango Delta, contact Bozeman Tower on 118.2.
Eight Delta Delta 118.2. Bozeman Tower, 058 Delta Delta, inbound for landing. All right, let's passing through 10,000. Let's
Baron
go.
058 Delta Delta, Bozeman Tower, wind 330 at 7, runway 30, cleared to land.
Runway 30, clear land, 8 Delta Delta. All right, we've now made our next turn. We're coming in towards Extra. We're catching up a little bit here, and we need to get over to Hazel, and Hazel's going to be 6,000 feet. So I think we're going to get close here. And let's dial in here.
02 Papa contact departure on 118.975.
6,000.
Contact departure of 118.975.
From Extra to Hazel is 2.5 miles.
02 Papa contact Salt Lake Center on 132.4.
I think we're probably going to be able to get 2,000 feet high. See, really bad vectoring here. I'm just going to kind of continue us down here to 5,000. This 4,800 feet is our procedure here. And let's, you know what, let's just start pulling up. Yeah. Start pulling out all of our power here, and let's see if we're going to make this. Really, really bad job. So I see the airport right there. So let's go ahead and Stams or Hazel 5,900 feet. Yeah, we are way late, but I think we can make this work. Not the best. All right, and let us disengage the autopilot because we are now gotten underneath the glide path. We see those pappies on the left here. We're red over red. So the memory pneumatic is white over white. Airport's out of sight. Red over red. You are too low and dead. All right, but we've got synced up there. Red over white. We're looking okay here. Gear is down.
KTWF 900 Sierra Bravo, clear to Seattle. Radar vectors Hyderabad, climb 7,000, expect 280 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 118.975, squawk 6133, TDM 900 Sierra Bravo.
0 Sierra Bravo, read back correct.
Nice landing, pilot.
Departure frequency for American
Nice landing.
American 5287, departure 118.975.
Then shut down your engine.
All right. Well, that was a little bit exciting. That was, I don't think I'd want to do that in the real world, but that was an exciting way to do an RNAV approach. So there are, as we see, a little bit of some.
Baron 8 Delta Delta, welcome to Bozeman. Contact ground on 121.8.
21.88 Delta Delta.
Baron 8 Delta Delta, excellent work following radar vectors to final approach. You just earned the Victor badge for your precision flying under ATC guidance.
No idea what that is, but we completely ignored what they were saying. But so I do like showing you guys this in terms of maybe some of the limitations we're seeing with some of the AI powered stuff. And let's just swap us over. Bozeman ground 058 Delta Delta, taxiing to parking. Let's pull up our flaps while we're taxiing in. So as I was saying, I really do like showing you guys maybe some of the limitations with the AI air traffic control. I think it's really good, adds a lot of immersion in there. For the most part, it works pretty well. But one of the things, as we saw, is we still have to be able to fly the aircraft. And when we're doing an RNAV like that, there's a reason those altitudes are in there. If I was in an airliner, there would be literally zero chance I would have been able to make that. I would have aborted the way out of that really, really early. The plus side on being in a fairly light aircraft like this is we can make some slight adjustments. So in any event, I think we made it. I think we landed nice and smooth enough to get our pay. So I will check us out here. Once again, everyone, thanks for being on board with me. I enjoyed having you. As we move through this series, it's more of a teaching series, as we've talked about earlier. We will definitely talk about RNAVs. Unfortunately, I was not prepared for that. That was not what I was thinking I was going to do, and so I just had to make some last-minute adjustments. So we will talk more about the RNAVs. If you have any questions about it, definitely hit me up in the comment section below. And as always, feel free to join the Discord. Love to have you over, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take care for now. Bye.